Isn't it wild that there are certain foods that you had no problem with before surgery, and then you get your ostomy and things are completely different? Let's talk about it. Hey guys, it's Maggie and I am back today, and in today's video we are going to be talking food. I've been asked about it a number of times to share the foods that I really tolerate well and the foods that I don't tolerate well, specifically with an ostomy, but I have to bring up Crohn's disease in this. You know, many of us have some underlying cause as to why we got our ostomies, and they can play a really big role in the foods that we eat. This video it's a difficult one to make because people vary so much. Without ostomies involved, without diseases involved, we tolerate different things, and that's just how it is. So when it comes down to the foods that I really like to eat and the ones that do well with my intestines, I know it's not going to be the same for you, but I know that people are curious about the things that I absolutely cannot eat and the things that I can, so we'll definitely talk about it. But I think it's important to talk about the why. You know, why do our intestines do this? Why can we tolerate some things before surgery and then after? It's just a wildly different experience. You know, things just don't seem to go through the same way. And you're sitting there wondering what the heck happened. So we'll get into that in just a second. But I have to thank today's sponsor, a sponsor that is now a repeating sponsor on my channel, and one that I have come to rely on every single day. Element is kindly sponsoring today's video, and if you're unfamiliar with them, they are a zero sugar electrolyte, and because of my ostomy, I deal with a lot of dehydration. Element has become something I rely on every single day, if not more than once a day. It feels like they found this perfect formula of sodium, 1,000 milligrams, potassium, 200 milligrams, and magnesium, 60 milligrams, as well as a really great flavor without gluten or artificial ingredients or coloring. None of the extra stuff, just the stuff that you need. If you've had electrolytes that are either really salty because of all the sodium in them or really sweet because they're trying to cover up the saltiness, this is not that. This is the perfect balance between the two that make it really thirst quenching. I rely on these electrolytes because when my ostomy gets going, it puts me at risk for dehydration. I get the brain fog, I get the fatigue, I get the headaches. And because I drink these, I get ahead of that problem, avoid them completely. In fact, we have friends that are visiting this weekend and they are arriving in like 20 minutes. So I am going to be drinking one of these now just to get ahead of the day. I know we're gonna be out and about, it's gonna be hot, and I don't feel like dealing with dehydration. So let's have some Element. That's really good. By ensuring that I always have this on hand, I am making sure that I stay in a fluid balance as well as an electrolyte balance, which I don't think we realize how important that is. Electrolytes control things like your nerve impulse conduction, nutrient absorption, hormonal regulation. It does a lot in the body, and it's important to keep it in balance. Right now, Element is offering my viewers a free sample pack that is 8 single serving packets with any order of Element. This is a great way to try 8 of their flavors or share Element with a salty friend. Get yours at drinkelement.com/LetsTalkIBD. This deal is only available through my link. That's drinklment.com/LetsTalkIBD. Thank you so much, Element, for sponsoring this video. Okay, let's talk about food. Why is it so hard to figure out? Well, I think it's really important to start with what's going on with us. I think many of us have a disease, some sort of GI illness that may have led us to getting our ostomies. For me, you may have heard me say IBD or Crohn's disease. IBD is just the umbrella term, Inflammatory Bowel Disease. You might notice it in my channel name. That's the reason I got my ostomy. It caused me a lot of damage, specifically in my colon and rectum. With these illnesses alone, you know, whether you're in a flare or you are currently in remission, they can affect your diet. You know, for me, when I had Crohn's disease, I was diagnosed at 11, so I was fairly young. And at the beginning, I'm gonna be honest, I don't remember having many restrictions. I think the only thing I was told not to eat was popcorn, and I'm pretty sure they tell all of us not to eat that. I know between my Crohn's friends, we all have different things that are kind of our trigger foods that set off symptoms. So early on, honestly, I was young enough that I probably am missing out on some things, or I had difficulty recognizing things that flared it up, but I really didn't start having issues until I began having strictures. Strictures are intestinal narrowing, so they make it difficult for food to pass through the intestines, and that's when I really started to have issues, basically with most food. When things aren't moving through, nothing's happy. I think the only thing that sounded good to me was liquids. So water, juice, Coke, things like that. That sounded like the only thing that I could tolerate. So yeah, that was that was a rough time. For many though, these underlying issues are enough to impact our diet. But then maybe you get to a point where you wind up with a stoma. And a stoma can certainly change things. It can change it for the better. You might wind up having a whole open world of food to you after surgery. It might also do the opposite. You might find certain foods a little bit more difficult to eat. It all kind of depends on why you got the ostomy, how the surgery went, how you healed from the surgery, and what intestinal parts you are still working with. That can really dictate how your stoma is going to do with certain foods. Really, your whole intestinal tract that you're working with, how that's going to do with certain foods. I think one of the most common questions I get in this subject area is somebody who, was doing fine before they ever had surgery. They've got their full intestinal tract, the colon included, and maybe they go in for surgery, they get an ostomy, they wind up getting their colon removed, and now they're suddenly dealing with constipation. And they're like, how the heck does this make sense? I'm getting rid of the slowest organ, the one that tends to pull water away, makes things slow down moving through. Why am I now having issues with blockages and constipation? So there's a few reasons that can play into this, and I actually experienced this myself, so I'll share that with you. But one of the things is, if you've got something like IBD like I do, just because you get a colectomy doesn't mean your disease is cured. When it comes to Crohn's, you can have Crohn's disease from your mouth all the way down through the anus. And actually, when I was diagnosed, it was my esophagus all the way down to my anus. We saw inflammation everywhere. And I actually did have mouth sores too that, looking back, we thought they were canker sores, but I wouldn't be surprised if maybe there was an element of Crohn's in there. But just because you get your colon removed or certain pieces doesn't mean that the disease can't pop up elsewhere, which is really, really frustrating. But that's something that I experienced. I really, even though I had Crohn's disease and I had a lot of trouble early on with inflammation throughout, once I started getting treatment, I really had a lot of it resolve, a lot of it heal. My esophagus, my stomach, my jejunum, my duodenum, they all look fine and dandy. I had a little bit of inflammation in my terminal ileum, which was taken out with my ostomy ordeal in the same week as my ostomy. So they got rid of as much as they could in my active digesting intestinal tract. But after a few years of living with my ostomy, my stoma, right around my stoma, actually started to get a little bit of Crohn's, and that's how I wound up on 𝙗𝙪, which, got rid of it right away. But the disease can come back, so that's something to think of. Inflammation can cause those narrowings. It can cause swelling, making it more difficult for food to pass through. The other thing that happens is, you have surgery to fix things, something that's wrong within you. It doesn't always leave things as they should be. Once you have surgery, things will never be 100% as good as they were prior. And I think this has been more of an issue for me. I had my original resection surgery, then a week later I wound up with the emergency ostomy surgery. Then I went in for the panproctocolectomy to completely get rid of the rest of my colon, my rectum, and close the anus. And so I had those 3 surgeries over the span of about 10 years. And in that time, there is a lot of tissue within your abdomen that holds your intestines into place, and they have to sort of rip it out. That's what I find the most painful about these types of surgeries. It's not the incisions, it's the inside feeling like it's been ripped apart, because it kind of has been. Once they close you up and you're on your road to healing, sometimes you can develop these adhesions and scar tissue. And unfortunately, with my 3 surgeries, that's exactly what happened. And I didn't know how filled I was until I started to have issues with my kidney. The ureter from my kidney got a little bit of a narrow spot, so my right kidney was not draining anymore. Very painful. So I had to get surgery on that, and when they opened me up, they said I was full of scar tissue. The funny thing was, prior to that kidney surgery, I had some issues with blockages, and this was mainly with, raw veggies or veggies that I just didn't cook enough. I remember I made a video where I got a blockage from broccoli, and I literally had to pull the broccoli out of my stoma. Like, it was just, I didn't chew it enough, it wasn't cooked enough, it just was not passing through. And it wasn't a huge issue for me at the time, but it definitely, I had to be careful. I had to chew well with stuff that was really fibrous. Then I had this kidney surgery, and he gave me a 2-for-1 deal. He did the thing with my ureter, but he also did a nice little scar tissue clean out. And I noticed just a world of difference afterwards, where not only did I feel like I was more flexible and could move around, but I noticed that food passed through me easier. And so I'm still careful. I don't eat raw veggies. I try to steam them, but I have not. Where's some wood? Where's some wood? I don't know. Here we go. Knocked on some wood. I have not had a blockage since. They are very painful, very uncomfortable, but that's a reason why you can have some blockages, some constipation that you didn't have before. It's because scar tissue and those adhesions can wrap around your intestines. They can wrap around different things in your abdominal cavity, in your peritoneum, and cause some issues. All right, so because I was asked, I'm going to share some of the foods that I really do well with, but also the ones that I do not tolerate well. In fact, there's one food that I 100% will avoid all the time. I'm gonna go through that. Obviously, it is different for everybody. We all tolerate different things. We all have other things going on besides the ostomies, besides the underlying disease. I have allergies. I have weird fruit and veggie allergies, so I keep that in mind. Just random things that affect me that have nothing to do with my ostomies. So I'm gonna go through all that, and I don't know, you might find it interesting. So I've been asked before, what do you avoid at all costs? And honestly, it has nothing to do, at least I don't think it has anything to do with my ostomy or my stoma. Avocado. Avocado, I avoid. I seem to have some allergy to it that developed only within the last few years. I used to be totally fine with it, but I started having these episodes of extreme abdominal pain and like close to projectile vomiting. It was rough and it was scary, and when it would happen, there were a couple of times that I thought Zach might have to take me to the hospital because I didn't know what was going on. I started to wonder if it was a gallbladder issue, but that didn't make sense because, avocados have a lot of fat in them, but there are other foods that have a lot of fat in them that I'm okay with. Maybe it causes my ostomy to speed up a bit, but it doesn't cause me this awful pain. And so I started to realize that it was only happening when I had avocado, and it does not take much. It does not take much avocado. Ever since I realized that, I've actually had a few people tell me this, that avocado allergy is related to latex allergies, which I don't know, honestly, if I would have a latex allergy. There isn't a lot of latex at the hospital. Like when I've been admitted, most products I think are latex free nowadays because of how common latex allergies are, but that's apparently related. And actually when I was in the hospital for my ectopic pregnancy, the nurse said, "Oh, I see on your chart you're allergic to avocado. I'm just curious, like what happens to you?" And so I told her, I said, like it's kind of scary and I throw up a lot and severe stomach pain. And she said, "Oh my gosh," I was asking because my friend has the exact same experience. So very interesting. I stay away from avocado. Like that's the one thing, if we go to a restaurant, I'm annoying about and I ask about because I just don't want to experience that. So there are a couple of other things that I avoid, but if it happens, if I happen to eat it, I happen to eat it. I will survive. And again, nothing to do with my ostomy. I tend to have an allergy to raw fruits and some raw veggies. It's really more of the fruits, and I just had this happen the other night. I got peaches, which I'll show you in just a second because I wanted to make a dish with peaches that were cooked. I cooked them for the meal, but I had extra, and so Zach made peach daiquiris, and they are not cooked in peach daiquiris, and my whole mouth blew up. It was, and my lips are still peeling. This was like a week ago. My lips are peeling from it, so kind of interesting. I avoid certain fruits. I really noticed that like berries, strawberries, blueberries, things like that, I'm pretty okay with just eating them raw, but things like melons, cherries were the worst. Cherries caused my throat to like get really scratchy and a little concerning there. I haven't had raw cherries in a long time. That one scared me. Yeah, cantaloupe. Cantaloupe was the first one that I discovered it on. So I'm just careful with fruits. And then veggies. I'm trying to think what veggies would do it. Most veggies I cook just because of my ostomy, so yeah. Another thing that I don't avoid fully, you know, it's in a lot of stuff, is sugar. Mainly with liquids. If I get a soda or coffee or things like that, I try to avoid adding extra sugar to it. Because I notice that it will really speed up my ostomy. I tend to go for the sugar-free option if I can, which is funny because the element that's sugar-free, I notice that if it does have sugar in it, it is like taking a laxative for me. I could use it as a prep almost for colonoscopy, if I had a colonoscopy, ileoscopy. I could use it as a prep because I lose fluid quickly, so I do try to avoid sugar. I'll get like a diet soda or something. I don't really drink soda super often, but yeah, just extra sugar I avoid. And the last thing that I obviously do not avoid completely, I just modify how I eat it, is meat. And it's sort of funny, I've mentioned before that I was pescatarian for 8 years, and I had a lot of trouble in that period with weight gain, and it's probably likely because I was not getting enough protein. I was eating only fish, and on the spectrum of meat, fish is the one that goes through me the fastest. Then it's like chicken, and then red meat causes the least issues for me. Everyone's gonna be different with that, but that was my experience. And when you're pescatarian, you only eat fish. The protein that I was getting, I don't think I was absorbing much of it. So about almost 2 years ago now, we went back to eating all meat, and suddenly I gained like 12 to 14 pounds. And I've kept it on, so I really think protein probably played a big part in that. There were a few other elements that, you know, were involved, but I found that interesting. So let me share some of the meals that I've made recently with you guys. First of all, when it comes to breakfast, I don't often eat breakfast. I don't know, I find in the morning that I have the least amount of appetite and I'm a little bit nauseated sometimes. So breakfasts are not super common, but if I do eat breakfast, it's usually something that has oats or granola or bread, something bready, just to kind of slow me down. I really find that that kind of stuff really helps to set the tone for the day. The first meal, if I start off with something that, you know, tends to run through me fast, the rest of the day I'm struggling to keep up. So I decided to try these apple cinnamon muffins. Zach had gotten raisin cinnamon muffins from work and I got to try one. They were really good. I didn't have raisins, but I did have apples. So I made these. I'll share the recipe in the description. But apple has like fiber and pectin in it. And I notice with apples that really helps slow my ostomy too. There really aren't a ton of apples in these muffins, but like with the apple pie filling that I made and I canned, that stuff really works well. Plus they're just delicious. They both turned out really good, the muffins and the cans that I made. So I really enjoyed them. I really find that apple stuff, especially if I just peel the skins off just to be careful. I don't have issues with skins most of the time, but you know, just in case. Plus I think it looks nicer for the cans. I think for preserving purposes I had to peel them. But for the muffins, I think I could have left the skin on. I don't know. Like I said, I got peaches because I wanted to try this new recipe, and I know that I have a bit of an allergy to different fruits, so cooking is totally fine for me. And in this dish, it was gonna be chicken. I sear the chicken in a pan, and then I also sear peaches. You add butter to it, and it makes sort of a peachy sauce, and then you bake it in the oven for however long it takes for the chicken to cook. So because I don't eat peaches often, I don't really know how they're going to react with my ostomy, and chicken is on that meat scale of, you know, could potentially speed it up. I added broccoli in. Now I know broccoli has caused me blockages in the past, but since having my scar tissue removal surgery, as long as I steam it really well, really cook it, I'm fine. And I actually find that adding this into meals with foods that could potentially speed things up for me, it balances it out and I wind up being okay. You know, my ostomy is fairly normal and I'm not up every 5 minutes in the middle of the night to empty. We also do eat salmon. Not super frequently, but I would say every couple of weeks we'll have salmon, and I really like it. I found this really nice way of cooking it where, you know, you sear it with butter and garlic, and it's really good. But it just goes through me too quickly. So another food that I'll use in this sort of situation is sweet potato. Sweet potato is probably my favorite thing to pair with a meal. Even when we go out, if I see sweet potato on the meal, I will get it, even if it's just sweet potato fries, because then I know my ostomy will likely behave. And then the green beans were my own. I had to add the green beans on because we grew them and they were delicious. And for the last thing I'm going to show you, this is just to show you how different we can be as IBD patients, as people with GI illness or people living with an ostomy. I have heard from so many that they can't deal with acidity or skins on vegetables. And one of my favorite dishes in the summertime is this tomato salad where I take some cherry tomatoes. I grew these, I'm very proud. Cucumber, I grew these as well. A little bit of onion, and then I add in honey, balsamic vinegar, and olive oil, salt and pepper. And it is absolutely delicious. You know, you put all the ingredients together, put it in the fridge for a few hours so it can kind of soak into the veggies, and I'm totally fine with that. It's one of my favorite things to eat, and I don't notice any issues with the acidity, but I do know people that really struggle with it. I also know people that if they didn't peel that cucumber skin off, they would be struggling too with their ostomies. I know people that can't eat salads. Gratefully, I don't have any issues with eating salads. It's sort of interesting how we all are so different, but like I said earlier, you know, it really depends on how your surgery went, what they took out, your disease underlying the whole cause of the ostomy, and how you're healing. It's definitely a long process to learn what you can tolerate and what you can't tolerate. Everybody's going to be different. I know some of the foods that I use to slow me down, people are like, heck no, that is going to constipate me for days. So, you know, we're all just a little bit different. It does take time to learn what you can tolerate, and I feel like I'm still learning that every single day. All right, guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope it was helpful for those asking about what I eat and what I don't eat. And thank you so much for Element for sponsoring this video. All right, guys, I'll see you in the next. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you are looking for a way to help support my channel, consider liking this video or even subscribing. You can also check out my store at LetsTalkIBD.shop. I have stickers and hoodies like these guys over here, just related to chronic illness and inflammatory bowel disease, something fun. And I also have a coupon code for my YouTube watchers. You could also become a member of my channel like the wonderful people scrolling on screen here. They've become a member and they have access to videos a little bit earlier. It's a great way to support my channel, and really, just watching my videos means the world. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next.